Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Between Monsters and Men. Today we are diving deep into the pits of the underworld to reveal the goddess known as Hel. I know I had just recently done a good, bad, and ugly video, which is the name of my God and Goddess series, but with Thor Ragnarok releasing soon, I can't help but do one or two videos talking about the deities of the Thor's world. I will also be doing a makeup video for both the movie and imagery that you see for her throughout history, and if you want to check out those when they come out, feel free to subscribe to my makeup channel listed on the screen from the link below in the description. Now, let's get back to this video. Most of us know Hell as the Christian realm of eternal suffering ruled by Satan, which the name came from the root of Proto-Germanic language, which is an ancestor of both Old Norse and Old English. Apart from having similar names that sound the same, the realms of the dead have nothing in common. Old Norse sources are not clear on how one would end up in the afterlife realms, which there is more than one of the others being Valhalla. What is clear is that where one goes after death has nothing to do with moral behavior, belief, or punishment. The dead in hell do much of the same kinds of things that Viking Age men and women did: eat, drink, fight, sleep, and so on. It was a neutral ground, not for the eternal bliss or torment. There's only one source that describes hell as an unpleasant place: Prose Edda, which was written by an Icelandic scholar named Snorri Sturluson. The source was written long after Norse paganism had given way to Christianity and ceased to be a living tradition, which stretches any evidence that hell was what he claimed it to be. The book was also more of a comedic story than a source of valuable information, such as he called hell hunger and her servants were named slow and lazy. That's just some of it, to say the least. Though hell is spelt with one L, it sounds exactly like hell from the biblical sense. The word, however, means hidden. Occasionally there are texts found that refer to hell as Helm, or the realm of hell, but those texts are wide and far between, and even so much can be called modern day Texas instead of Old Norse. And like hell from Christianity, hell is thought to be underground, but there are a few sources claiming that hell is actually somewhere in the north, where the cold and dark world is much like a grave. It's also said in some works that a dog guards the entrance to hell, like Cerberus does in the Greek mythology. Popularly known as Loki's daughter and the daughter of Anboda, a giant, this half-giantess rules over the cold and dreary underworld where the dead dwells. Like the underworld she rules over, her name means hidden, and much like the rest of her family, such as her brothers Fenrir and Jormungand, she is one to be feared. She is represented as being greedy, harsh, and cruel. Unfortunately, her personality is a little underdeveloped and not much is known about her due to the lack of survival of Old Norse literature that is found on her. It was told that when Hel was born, disease came into the world, and where she'd sweep into towns and cities, plague would follow. Her appearance is described in a very few ways, one being half black and white with a grim and fierce expression on her face, another half beauty, half ugly, and even one where she's an ugly half-dead hag with gangrene legs and a hideous face. Stated in the Eddas, she may as well have had authority over the 9 worlds or realms, which the Norse believed in. Since she was the goddess of hell and was concerned with dead and all that dies, this strongly implies that she covers everyone and everything that can die in the whole cosmos, thus the 9 worlds. She had 2 sidekicks, a plate named Hunger and a knife named Fathom. These items and names circulated around the reality of the people who had starved from the land being so cold and harsh for the crops. Due to there being very few old stories on her, the only surviving myth in which she's prominently known in is that of the death of Baldur. Baldur was a beloved god who was slain by Loki. The god sent a messenger named Hermod to retrieve Baldur from Hel. However, Hel wouldn't have any of that, and she refused to give her prize up so easily. But being Loki's daughter, she wanted to play a little. She told Hermod that she would only release Baldur if every last thing in the universe would weep for him. Only one person out of the entire cosmos refused to weep for him, and that was a giantess, who was Loki in disguise. Due to this, Hel was able to keep Baldur in her clutches. It is safe to say that Ragnarok is probably one out of the many War of the Gods that the majority of the comic, fantasy, sci-fi, and mythology fans have heard of, and even some for the comic folk who are not interested in those things. Ragnarok was a war that Vikings and Norsemen believed in firmly, that would end the days. It probably was for them. A great winter came shortly after some natural disasters happened that people of that time thought the gods were fighting. The greatest cause of Ragnarok is thought to be Loki. After having killed Baldur and his eventual imprisonment, Loki escaped his chains only to attack and kill another god. Now, I'm no history buff, but this is from my viewpoint. Loki killed Baldur, a beloved god. The gods didn't punish Loki for that. Instead, they sent to retrieve Baldur. It was Hel herself, goddess of death and underworld, who said no, unless everyone wept. I'm not stepping out of bounds when I say I wouldn't be surprised that Hel knew her father would help her with the plan of keeping Baldur. And so, when Loki disguised himself as a giantess and didn't weep, Baldur was kept. For this trickery, Loki was imprisoned. Angered and out of plenty of years in imprisonment, he escaped and killed another god. Thus, Ragnarok started. If Hel would have given up Baldur in the beginning, Ragnarok may have not started when it did. I'm not saying that Ragnarok may have never started, just not during those instances. Hel may have been the sole source of why Ragnarok had started at that time period. All else I could find on her is that Baldur did end up escaping from Hel, and when he did, he joined the war. Hel marched up against Asgard with a legion of dead. This is right before the battle was over, and everything dies, and the world is broken. At least in the stories. That is literally all I can find on this mysterious woman of great power who comes from a powerful family full of destruction. I even went to my local bookstores in hopes to find any new information in mythology books and even a few Norse mythology books as well. I found very little sentences with little difference from what I have found online. The whole Ragnarok deal is just my opinion. I could be 100 times off, but when I read it in a book, it just clicked for me. Maybe I romanticized it a little too. So tell me, what do you think? Due to YouTube demonetizing videos like mine, please check out my Patreon page listed below to help support me in my journey bringing you all that is mysterious, creepy, bizarre, and unusual. Please also like, comment, and subscribe.